What's up, guys? Another Down the Middle podcast. My name is Nomal.
I'm Ryan.
And today we'll be talking about how to be moderate in 2021. Almost an impossible feat to accomplish in 2021, but we think it's possible.
Sounds kind of scary, honestly.
What, to be moderate?
Yeah. I mean, you might get like tomatoes thrown at you or something.
Yeah, because you think you'd get the best of both worlds, but in actuality, you'll get pummeled by both worlds.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing about America today. It's going to take a mass movement of moderation for someone to come along and to really push this movement into fruition, but we can try. And now when we say how to be moderate, it doesn't mean vote as an independent. It doesn't mean vote as a moderate. You really, I mean, if you want to vote for whoever you want to vote for, Joe Jorgensen, do it. But we're just saying to approach situations neutrally and then to create your own ideas.
Yeah, it's almost as if, honestly, it might not even be a good way to put it, how to be moderate. It's more like how to approach politics.
Yeah, exactly.
That's better the way to put it, because you can still be moderate or think moderately and still side with a political affiliation.
I think that both of us do that.
Yeah, I try my best to approach things neutrally and then go from there.
I've always said that I'm about 80% conservative, then I'm about 15% independent, and I have some liberal values too. I was talking about like background checks for guns, and we've had pro-choice arguments.
Yeah.
And, stuff about athletes shouldn't be getting paid and tax rates and everything. Yeah. So maybe even more, maybe like 10% liberal, because I have values that. Yeah. That's just because I look at these situations and these like I look at the issues and the policies and the people and everything, and I examine it neutrally, and where my brain takes me to is what I believe in, and naturally those things go more conservative because I'm a conservative. But it's not just like, well, I'll let you talk about the checklist mentality, because that sentence is going to go right in there. So
yeah, I mean, on that note, I'm like 60%.
I think you're less than me.
Yeah, I'm definitely less than you, I think. But nonetheless. But
I was like, damn.
Oh no, I didn't mean like that. But nonetheless, though, I think we could both commit, like, we really approach things neutrally.
Yeah.
We don't look at one side, because that's a lot of things with the news outlets do, right? They take left wing, then have left ideologies, left thoughts, right? Say that would be CNN, Fox News, same thing. So what we do, we look at both sides. That's one thing that a lot of people don't do nowadays, which is actually could be the first step in how to be moderate and how to approach things neutrally. Look at both sides, because there's three sides to the story, right? There's a left, there's a right, and then there's the truth. So and that truth really is subjective, I'd say, because the truth is your own, right? So you take the information from the left, you take it from the right, and then the truth is what you come up with afterwards. You take information neutrally. Yeah,
and I think that, like, one of the big knocks on this podcast from people on the left has been the fact that we're both conservative, we're both leaning conservative, and that they wouldn't listen to a podcast named Down the Middle if the two people are conservative, which is just a stupid ideology, because when we first explained the podcast is that, yes, we're both conservative people, but we approach everything neutrally, and we let our thoughts dictate what we say on this podcast. So if you look at the stats of any type of case, you look at the actual facts of a case, and you get the information from what actually went down, and then you approach it like that. That's called a neutral approach to a situation. And then wherever you go from there is obviously will dictate your political affiliation.
Yeah, and so what the opposite of that would be, for example, if you can't stand your coworker because they have like Biden stickers all over their car, and like, I can't stand so and so because that's all they talk about. Yeah, that wouldn't be the right way, because first of all, you're not even open to having conversation with them, right? So that just defeats the purpose of conversation. And then also, like, have you seen? I've seen personally plenty of Facebook posts throughout the years, more so recently after I think Trump got elected as well, back in 2016, where if you side with the right, if you side with Trump, unfriend me right now. Yeah. Or just ask me, I'll just block you. Like what is the purpose of that? You know?
I've had people on my Instagram who I am close with put that stuff up. I'm just like, wow, I'm in a weird spot.
It's weird, because now you're not allowing public discourse. You're not even hearing the other person out for what they believe in, or what they. Because the thing is, though, it's so easy to see things from your side. Yeah. But having empathy and trying to understand the other person is extremely hard, and you can obviously see that through the years of increasing animosity and increasing tension between political parties, and not even any room for a conversation.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, it's very, very hard to be empathetic for a side that you don't agree with, but that's kind of what you need to do. And that Trump point is a great point, because there are 100 different reasons you could vote for Donald Trump. It could be policy, you could like his rhetoric, you could like his hair, there's plenty of different things beyond you're a racist who hates people and you're a sexist and all this stuff that are the worst attributes that people commonly associate with him, and now to his followers as well. So the idea that if you voted for Donald Trump, unfollow me, well, that just feeds right into the checklist mentality we spoke about in the last video, which is our big pushing point for this series, is the idea that you don't know everything about a person based on who they voted for. Actually, you don't know much about a person at all based on who they voted for. Objectively, because you do know certain things. You know what policies they support, or maybe you don't, because you look at Joe Biden and you ask Joe Biden voters, what policies of his do you support? And they just say, oh, the policy where he wasn't born named Donald Trump. Like that's the only one. But then you have also Biden voters who support the progressive agenda he's a moderate who's a progressive. So
yeah. And I think the main point that we want to bring home is we're not here to scold you or shame you into not having political discussions.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, well, I'm not here to do that. But because, and also, I don't know about you, but personally, I've also done that myself, and also before 2016, before Trump got elected, I was also left-wing. I was left-leaning person.
Yeah.
But that's after that year, that's when I really started getting into politics and then started to do research for myself and approach things neutrally. But I just want to say that I think we've all been in the same boat, making quick assumptions and not having any discourse and making opinions just from assumptions solely, So I think that's something we've all been guilty of, but also something we could improve on.
So you'd be saying that you have been guilty of the checklist mentality yourself?
Yeah,
because I definitely agree with that too. The thing is that with these issues, like you see this with the big pushback in critical race theory, is that when you push this stuff on people and you keep on pushing it, and the stuff that affects the subconscious. So obviously it's things that people aren't aware of, but now we're making you aware of them. When you do this, they continue to persist, and now they actually become a thing. So the checklist mentality is the idea that all these different abstract traits are associated with a person based on their politics. Now, that was never a thing, but when you continue to do it, now you start to be aware. It's like, I like to work out. Watch the last video, because what I'm going to say right now makes no sense. I like to work out, so that means that people think I'm a racist. Now, that was never the case, but now I actually think about that. Like, is it true? What do I have to do to make sure that's not the case? Like, how do I act? And then when you do that, you're condemning yourself to a much more difficult life. And the thing is, you were never racist in the first place, but now you're being told you are, and it's on the forefront of your mind.
And we live in an age where it's difficult to talk about politics, and an age where just having those discussions about politics affects every single relationship that you have, whether it be business, relationship, friendships, marriages. So things have come to an end just from political affiliation. And it actually just goes into, I want to get into some stats real quick. So this is another, some more research done by the Cato Institute, a survey. So they divided up the surveys. What's the word for that? The people who took the surveys, pretty much what I'm trying to say. So they divided by strong liberal, moderate, conservative, and strong liberal. Strong conservative, right? So they were trying to find out the percentage of those people that resonate with their respective group. What percentage of those people are okay with stating their political opinions in public or with other people? So you see on the graph around the conservative and strongly conservative individuals, it's around 23-22%. Get to moderate, it's around 36%. But then as you get to the left, so liberal and strongly liberal is at 48%, and then strongly liberal is 58%. So you can see from that graph alone that it's almost double the amount, actually even more than double than the amount if you're on the strong liberal side. That they're triple. That they're okay with saying their opinions out in public, and which also ties into our whole ideology that, or how we used to say that there's a lot of industries that control society, academia, and then entertainment. And then if you don't side with those things, since they're pretty much the majority, so also, I mean, you can see from White House and then Congress, then you're left in the shade and you're almost afraid to say what you feel and think.
And I want to ask you a question, but when we say liberals are loud and that these people are the louder party, I mean, statistics prove it. But I would say that moderates should be the highest on that.
Should be.
Because, I mean, as a moderate, you agree with both sides. So it speaks more to the fact that conservatives are so quiet. Because then as a moderate, you can only agree with the people who are loud because other people are quiet. So moderate should be, I mean, if you're a moderate and you're proud of your politics, what would stop you from being comfortable talking in public to people about your politics? You agree with both sides. But they can only agree with the liberals because the conservatives don't speak about that stuff.
Right, and that also goes to why Ryan just said they seem to be loud, because you also have the moderates on that side, but then you don't also have the moderates on the right side, because they're almost not allowed to speak on that premise.
And that was the danger. If you remember, last year when we were going into the campaigns and into the runoffs and everything, they called the conservative side the silent majority, which I always thought was a bad thing, because silent majority would infer that you are the majority of people in America, but for whatever reason you're quiet about your politics.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Yeah, that was a big thing. That was like the red wave is coming, the silent majority is coming. And that just proves it. And I think that one of the reasons that we need to, how we should analyze that, and why people in public in the workplace are more comfortable to speak if you're liberal than if you're conservative, because when we talk about the checklist mentality, we talk about the extremism and the kind of the extent that it's pushed to. And that's the real danger of it, is because if you voted for Donald Trump, then you're a white supremacist. So basically, how far it pushes, how you assume people what they are when you talk about their politics, is that on the right side, you assume that people are racist, you assume that people are Nazis, and you assume that people are white supremacists. So just like these abstract things, watch the last video, that if someone drives a pickup truck, then you think that they're a Nazi. That's very scary for someone. You have to watch yourself if you're that close to being called a racist, because those words you don't just brush those off. Now the thing is, as a conservative, conservatives are generally more respectful, which is something that's starting to shift away. But conservatives have historically been more respectful than liberals. Liberals are loud and rash and emotional. But, I mean...
that's not a downhill take.
That's not a down... I mean, I think that's true. But, and I think that proof of that is, like, what is the hard insult? What is the really, like, the knife in the back that conservatives use against liberals? We don't have that, you're a white supremacist, you're a Nazi. Basically, all we do is just call you people dumb. And so to say, like, economically, you don't know what's going on. Policy-wise, you have no sense. But, I mean, there's nothing that's going to, like, cost you your job or really affect your character or demean your public image or anything.
Yeah, so the main point is, on the extreme left, if you don't agree with those ideologies, you will be able to be labeled as a racist, a white supremacist, et cetera. But on the flip side, what really is the repercussion, or what are the labels that the extreme right gives to the left?
Yeah, and that's why that study is so important, because when you're in the workplace, you're in public, you can lose your job if you're called a racist. If someone who's on the left side is mad at you for your politics, they call you a racist, and this is a huge PR dilemma. It's just a huge thing that you could lose your job. But then if you're on the left side and someone on the right disagrees with you and they're loud about it and they call you dumb, then, I mean, everyone in the workplace is going to laugh out of it, but nothing's going to happen to you. You don't get kicked out of school. You don't get kicked out of your job. You know, it's just kind of like brushed off. So, I mean, that's a scary thing.
Yeah, and a statistic that actually ties into that is that within that same survey, a third of those individuals were scared to talk about their political affiliation or opinions because they believe that it may hinder their place at or position in the workplace or their careers in general.
Yeah.
So that's a huge percentage. 33% of people are afraid to talk about their own political opinions because it may affect their whole career.
I guarantee you that the majority of them were conservatives too.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Yeah.
Because liberals don't really face those fears of today.
Or same repercussions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the bigger thing. Is the fears are obviously one thing, but the repercussions will really matter.
Yeah,
that's scary stuff.
And then one more statistic just to tie that with 60% of Republicans and 49% of independents with postgraduate degrees fear being penalized at work if their political opinions become known, compared to 25% of Democrats with postgraduate degrees. So obviously you can see college. Well, we've always said this: colleges play a role in political opinions because a lot of colleges, especially private colleges, are liberal.
Yeah,
and a lot of professors are liberal. They're left leaning. So colleges as a whole, their system rather, is very left leaning, and also right wing students I've seen personally are ostracized.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And it's that's an important thing because as we spoke about workplace discussion, I mean, when you're at work and you're just with your fellow employees and there's really nothing going on, this stuff tends to always come out. And basically every workplace political conversation comes out. And it was always that you can have the discourse, and usually it's fun at work, you know, you just poke fun at each other, but now you could lose your job. Yeah. And that's a scary thing. So conservatives are they have to stay quiet about this.
Yeah.
But let's shift the conversation a little bit to now our advice for approaching these things neutrally, not switching your political party, but how you should approach politics in this extremely radical age.
Yeah. So, well, I've always said this. I think like every single podcast, I think conversation is the first key.
Yeah.
Right? So that's literally I don't know. Is it the only way? Almost. I think. What would you say?
I don't think it's the only way, but I think it's extremely important. I think that you can have conversations with yourself, like to the point where you have the checklist mentality.
Getting spiritual.
Yeah. I think the spirituality is left leaning now, but yeah,
spirituality left, right leaning. I mean, religion's right.
Yeah. Weird. But when I say conversations with yourself, I just mean that if you fall prey to the checklist mentality, then you're told by the media, you're told by the public everything that you believe in. Now, you have to just kind of sit with those things and ask yourself, do I actually believe in that? Let me see a case of a girl in Ohio about to stab another girl and a cop shoots the girl. Let me see, what do I actually think about that? Because CNN is telling me that the guy is a racist. Fox News is telling me the guy is a hero. Now, where do I come in? What do I actually believe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know? So, like Ryan said, I think conversation is the biggest part, but conversation by itself is not going to take you anywhere. I think it's how you approach the conversation that really matters and produce the most optimal end result, right? So I think the first step in that is you don't try to educate somebody until the end, though. Right. I think it's first important to understand the person and their opinions first before educating, because nowadays I always tell this to my brothers because they don't listen sometimes, but but people in general listen to respond, but don't listen to understand. That's a bar.
I mean,
and you see that he's getting spiritual real quick. He's
deep,
almost left leaning. Now he's 70%. But seriously though, like, I mean, I've done it myself. Like, I just listen to find a quick response to give back, but I don't listen to necessarily understand somebody or what their perspective is. And that goes back to the whole empathy point where you won't necessarily understand their perspective if you don't put yourself in their shoes first. And if that still doesn't resonate with you, then you come back and, come around full circle and to really say what you have to say in terms of educating them.
I think that an important thing to that, and we come back to this idea a lot, is the weak generation idea. Like, weak generations tend to be more closed-minded. And tend to push back against the idea that they can be wrong. And the thing that you're pushing for is open-mindedness and approaching. And it's not to say that people are going to be right if you give them a chance in conversation. Because if you know what you're talking about, you're educated and you go into a political debate, you're going to be right the majority of the time. But that's not to say that you shouldn't go in and be open-minded to the idea that you can be wrong. And an idea that exists today with this weak generation is that people don't think that they're wrong. They go into conversations like, well, it doesn't matter what you say, I'm right.
The whole problem about this whole thing is that I think collectively as a nation, we all are supportive of the idea of persecuting like bigotry, right? And like taking that out of society, taking out just individuals that don't belong to society, like bad individuals that have harmful, motives, right? But the thing is, though, we're never the people. We don't think that we might be themselves. Like, right? We always think that we're the good guys. And that's the problem, because at some point you will end up being wrong, right? You will end up being on the wrong side of things, and you will end up having to understand somebody first rather than explain yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why I just think that you should just look at everything neutrally at first. Protect yourself. Protect yourself, and the way you protect yourself from that is being wrong and inadvertently, and being wrong and caught by surprise is just making your own opinions. Like, you look at like a situation that's happening on like Capitol Hill right now, where there's a Navy reservist who allegedly was in the Capitol Hill building on January 6th, right? He said he stepped inside there for a minute, he heard gunshots, and he left. And now he's still in prison. Which now, how many months later are we? 6 months later?
Yeah, 6 months.
Now, just yesterday, there were 2 murderers released on bail for $15,000 and $20,000.
Wow.
Now, look at that case and just think to yourself, okay, so you have this guy who's in the Navy who's in jail 6 months later for trespassing for a second, and you have 2 murderers released immediately on bail for a low amount of money. Now, as a conservative, I look at that and I say, that's completely unjust. I don't see how anyone could think that that's not unjust. But then again, I need to take a look at that and say, well, there are people who are very offended by the January 6th thing. Those people should also be able to come to the table and say, well, those people should be in jail, and we should be able to agree that criminals should be in prison. And we should be able to have a conversation on what we believe. But it's not just like, let me look at that. This guy should be out. Those guys should be in jail for life, and it's as simple as that.
And actually, a good point to bring up that ties with what you just said is taking events exclusively from each other. Right? Because a lot of people are, incapable of doing that because they tie their emotions into a string of events and make it more so like a one-sided, or more not one-sided, one long story that goes together. And then kind of like puts all of the components of the story the same in each event, which is not true.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the whole cops video that we did earlier in the year.
With Ma'Khia Bryant.
Yeah, with Ma'Khia Bryant, where we said a bunch of stories that weren't, where it was the cops' fault, and then another story where it wasn't the cops' fault. Because you have to take each event exclusively. Yeah,
and I mean, in a case like it's the thing that I think I'm not going to talk for you for this one. It's just that there's a irrationality on the left, because you look at cases like that where you just look at the body cam footage or something like that, and you just think, well, I mean, I'm trying to understand how the left could be in opposition of that officer's actions. I'm trying to understand it, but I can't. And then just to corroborate with the leftist story, we have that conversation on TikTok with the guy talking about how everything in his life has gone wrong, and because everything in his life has gone wrong, the guy should use the taser or tackle the girl or something. But the important thing is that you sat there and you tried to understand, and then, just like you said, at the end of the day, you're gonna, if you're right, you're right, you know? Basically, like, if you know your information and you're there, then you're gonna be right at the end of the day, but you came in open-minded.
Yeah. Actually, another component of that, just to add on to, like, how to be moderate and how to approach things neutrally, I think is having those conversations with people, because at the end of the day, you're also having that conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
It's easy to be biased with the conversation with yourself, but it's hard to do that with somebody that's actually saying their own side and own perspective with other people. Right?
Maybe like another dynamic to having a one-on-one dialogue is putting their ideas against yours in that
absolutely.
moment. Yeah.
And being open to having those conversations. So also being uncomfortable with being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because those conversations and political conversations will be uncomfortable. But the thing is, though, a lot of people don't put their themselves or take the initiative to do that.
And I mean, that's a pretty easy one to correlate to a weak generation. Is the comfortable being uncomfortable idea. Is that it's a lot easier to be comfortable as much as you want, but when we talk about like the idea that stress breeds growth and that you need to stress out your body and your mind to produce progressive growth and positive growth, you need to put yourself in stressful situations.
Yeah. And then, do you have another one real quick?
No.
Okay. I think the one last thing would be, don't prejudge. I think that's like the one main thing that will almost outright combat like the checklist mentality, because checklist mentality is all it is assumptions, right? But if you don't prejudge and go into a conversation without assuming what that person will believe, then you're already one step ahead of just trying to have a civil dialogue.
I would say do that in moderation, because today I think that it's a lot easier to prejudge and you're a lot more susceptible to it because people are so radical. Like if you have the person out there with the 15 masks and the big picket sign and they're screaming at you, then it's really hard not to prejudge.
Also agree.
If you have the guy who's he has 3 teeth and he's screaming how Donald Trump is God, it's really hard not to prejudge. So, but when you have civil people who are not loud and are not rash and are looking for that conversation, then make sure you don't prejudge, because this conversation could be very fruitful.
Yeah, and I doubt the people that you just named would even be open to have a conversation in the
but
first
they'll
place.
yell at you, though, and they'll really get on your nerves.
Yeah, definitely.
So in those situations, prejudge all you want. Defend yourself, defend what you believe in, and don't let people who, on either side, don't let people who are emotional and who are just stupid just offend you and be disrespectful to you. Either leave or stand up for yourself.
Especially if they're not open to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
At that point, if they're not going to have a conversation with you and defend their own ideologies against yours, then there's no point in that conversation.
And the thing is, those people on the right and the left who are emotional like that, they don't know facts. They don't know policy. They don't know anything. They just know what they believe in. And the reason they believe in those things are usually unjustifiable or pretty just like quick and uneducated. So you can take out those people on either side in a real political debate. So I mean, I would just say, just to sum it up, just like we said last time, just you need to remember that your politics, your political identity is unique to you. Everything that you believe in, my political beliefs, I believe that you'd be hard pressed to find someone else out there who believes the exact same things as I do in the exact same manner. And I think that you could say the same, right?
Yeah. Like we talked about, it's like I guess I would be on the right side, but I'm a pro-choice guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there are these things that, I mean, you can't say that you're a 2021 conservative if you're pro-choice.
Yeah, apparently not. So I guess you guys don't want to claim me. All right, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You're just left to the purgatory.
Yeah.
And so I would just say that the big thing that we need to focus on now is just remembering that fact, looking at everything neutrally, and then just deciding what you believe in for yourself. Don't let Fox News, don't let CNN, don't let Twitter or Instagram or your parents or your loud best friend or the people in high school, whoever it is, don't let them tell you what you believe in. You know, you do that for yourself. And if those things that you believe in are truly morally correct, and those are the things that you were meant to believe in, then guess what? After you do that research and after you do that soul searching and you find out what you're looking for, you'll arrive at the same spot.
Absolutely. And on top of that, I just want to close off with saying this is not easy at all to do. And this is definitely scary, if anything, to formulate your own political opinions. And if you find yourself not going with the herd, keep on going.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because if you just follow that mentality of just going with the crowd, and with anything with life, whether it be politics or your career path or what you want to do in life, you're not going to end up where you want to be.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you know what? It is worth it. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to election cycles, you're going to have to compromise on your own beliefs because the candidate who's going to run is not going to reflect your political values perfectly. They shouldn't, because no one should.
Yeah.
But it is worth it, I would definitely say, because then you know what you believe in. And your actions are just a reflection of what you believe in. So you want to act in a manner that, in your mind, is morally upright.
Yeah, and you're closer to who you are and who you want to be. Yeah. And that's really the main point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we dropped them bars.
Yeah, so screw the checklist mentality. I mean, it's our biggest idea, and we hate it. So that says a lot.
Yeah, we hate a lot of things, but checklist mentality's right up there.
And we invented it. Yeah.
We hate our own
It's like creation. You have a baby, and you just get that thing the frick out of here. Yeah.
I hope you're not doing that with your babies.
That would be left-leaning. No, I'm kidding. That was bad. All right, so we'll come back with you guys soon, all right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much it. Peace
out.